And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, here's a senseless statement from the awesome alliterator, Gavin Newsom.
We've proven a paradigm. You don't have to be profligate to be progressive.
Is he mindful about it, though?
Very.
That is something we are mindful of.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our pal and my colleague over at the Southern California News Group, which, of course, is the LA Daily News, the OC Register, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and most importantly, Randy,
the Redlands Daily Facts.
He's also author of the new book, which comes out July the 18th, which you can get at your favorite bookstore or online at Amazon.com. It's called Frank Shadow. Doug Mcintyre, welcome.
Thanks for having me. And by the way, that's exactly 1 week from today, and I will be at Barnes & Noble at the Grove at the Farmers Market. Lots of parking from 7 to 9 p.m. with a reading and signing event, and please, by all means, make an effort to come on out. It should be a great time, and I would love to see everybody in person.
Now, will you be serving sushi on somebody's naked body?
Yeah, but that's going to be afterwards. That has nothing to do with the book. That's just what we do on a Tuesday.
I saw you're going all over the place. You're going on the road like you're Jim Baker.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So next Tuesday night, 7 to 9, we're at the Grove. And then on the 22nd, I'll be at this great independent store down in Long Beach called Gatsby's at noon for those folks down in the Long Beach area. And we'll be talking and reading and signing Frank Shadow at Pages, a bookstore in Manhattan Beach on the 26th. And then we're down in Irvine at the Barnes & Noble at the Spectrum on August 2nd. And finally, for Southern California, on August 9th, both Penny Pizer and I will be appearing together with both of our books at Vroman's in Pasadena at 7 o'clock. And, of course, Penny's book, Sonnets from Suburbia. So it's and then we go to the East Coast, and we got something in New Jersey and out on Long Island, et cetera. So, you know, it's a book summer.
Now, when you go down to Long Beach for your appearance there, are you going to take the MTA?
No, because I want to get there.
Good idea.
Yeah, no, it's first of all, I live in the West Valley, so getting to Long Beach itself is a hellish ride under perfect circumstances. But the MTA, I don't think so.
All right. Well, so much to get to. Let's start with the big press conference that happened on your favorite channel, on your television dial, Channel 35, involving the newly elected mayor, Karen Bass, and members of the city council, where they essentially waved the white flag and acknowledged they don't have the answers for homelessness and they're giving up. Let's start with the city council president, Paul Kerkorian.
So this is not the typical kind of emergency that Los Angeles faces. Los Angeles, throughout its history, has faced any number of different emergencies requiring emergency declarations. But this is not an earthquake. It's not something that happens suddenly and that it has to be addressed over the short term. This is something that has happened over the course of decades, even generations, which will require sustained, complicated policy responses for the foreseeable future. That's why what the council enacted was a new section of the ad code that would be a more tailored kind of emergency declaration specific to this type of challenge. We can't treat this the same way we would an earthquake or a tsunami or something else, because we know that we're going to have to continue to bring this urgency over the course of a very long period of time in order to effectively address this challenge.
As much as they say the word urgency, they're acting with none of it.
And here is Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson.
And it'll take years and years, and I believe the solution will be slow-moving. And so,
because they've been moving fast now, Doug.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Everybody knows this, they've known it for forever, and a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, there was a really, I thought, significant article in the LA Times about the minority dissent filed in the Ninth Circuit en banc Court of Appeals, meaning the conservative judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals wrote a protest to a decision going to Grants Pass on homelessness. And this relates to the fact that the courts in California and increasingly across America have said it's not a crime to be poor, and therefore if somebody's living on the streets, you can't arrest them for living on the streets. And this has paralyzed. It's been exacerbated, of course, by, the George Gascons of the world. But it's paralyzed communities to actually take aggressive, assertive action. And the conservatives on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, essentially by writing this very strongly worded, and if you haven't read the piece, look for it on the LA Times website. It's worth looking at. Because what they're doing is essentially begging the United States Supreme Court to take a look at this case. Because until the courts take the handcuffs off local communities to take aggressive action against homelessness, you're going to have this mamby-pamby, half measures, tepid, and all these other words that they throw at them, throw at the problem, responses to what is a fundamental issue of public safety and public health, and false compassion. That all of the concepts, the nonsense that we're going to build our way out of the homeless crisis is absurd. It's laughably absurd. You can't build affordable housing in a place where the land you build on is expensive, and you can't take somebody who's a meth head or is completely off their rock or a pyromaniac and put him in collective housing. They're going to burn the place down. So the only thing you can do is to build on a massive scale dormitories with mental health facilities, physical health facilities, career training, hygiene, medical, everything that you could possibly need, every kind of human rehabilitation. But they have to be barrack-style housing on a grand scale when you talk about 50 to 70,000 people on the street, with more showing up every day. And you have to have the legal ability to take people off the street against their will and command them to those facilities. And we can't do that right now. We don't have the legal authority to do that. And as you know, where Leslie Van Houten is in transitional housing now, and that means one homeless person is denied a bed somewhere. So Leslie Van Houten, is not being kept in prison. So what's the chances that someone pooping on the sidewalk is going to be kept in prison? Zero under the current dynamic. But this is the reality that every community in America is dealing with right now. And until that problem is addressed, until we move away from the notion that, yes, it is not a crime to be poor, but it is a crime to defecate in public spaces. It is a crime to swing a belt over your head at signs and pedestrians as they walk by. It is a crime to set fires in the doorways of people's homes and businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, to that point, the courts have ruled that it's not a crime to be homeless, but the expansive definition that people like George Gascon and Eric Garcetti and others have interpreted from that are crimes that are committed by people who are homeless also deserve a pass, meaning stealing your mail, stealing your Amazon packages, smash and grabs.
Well, because John, I'm going back to the central point. Until we get clarity on or a willingness and the facilities, you can't just start. We do not have, this is a physical reality. We do not have space to put people. If today, all of a sudden, Karen Bass were to bang her head into a kitchen cabinet and be a different person and say, we're going after this problem as if it was an earthquake, as if it did require triage on an instantaneous basis. We have no place to put people. We just don't have the physical space for 70,000 people, every single one of whom is incredibly labor-intensive because you're dealing with a human being. You're dealing with people who need all kinds of assistance to work out of the sort of mental La Brea tar pit they have sunk into to get them up and functioning again. so you can't just take them and put them in a cage somewhere. Eventually, you're going to have to let them out, and now you've got the recycle system that has failed for 20 years. You need to have giant facilities and the ability to send people there until they are deemed capable of sustaining their lives independently. And some of them never will be, in which case now you have to talk about long-term mental institutions. For some of the people are psychotic. They can't be put into normal housing ever. I mean, and we got to stop pretending that there's some middle ground here. Right now we've got a public health and public safety crisis. And it's, when you look at people with bath salts and with these fentanyl and the toxicity and these zombie drugs that people are taking, these flesh-eating drugs, it's horrific. We've all seen the video, and they've seen the video. It's not that Karen Bass doesn't know this. Karen Bass has been down there. She's gone into tents and talked to the people. She knows what the reality is, but is not willing to expend the political capital necessary. And I don't understand why, because I have to tell you something. Left, right, center, libertarian, RFK Jr. vote, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you support. Everybody wants this problem dealt with. Everybody.
I don't know if you heard the interview earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week, with the Reverend Andy Bales, who runs the Union Rescue Mission downtown.
Yes, and didn't he lose his legs to flesh-eating?
He did. And
Yeah.
he is one of the most kind-hearted, mild-mannered figures you will see in Los Angeles. And this last time that he was on the show, he was furious. He's furious that our elected and appointed leaders in Los Angeles keep banging their heads up against the wall and doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on things that don't work, particularly handing out the meth pipes downtown to all of the drug addicts. And he's saying that as someone who's trying to help these people with recovery and mental health services and all of the things that you and I know that they need, he was saying that the county is breaking them faster than he can fix them. And as long as they keep
exactly
giving
right.
them the meth pipes and keeping them addicted to drugs, we're never going to get out of this problem.
Well, it's completely absurd. It's would we treat any other? That's like would they address global warming by increasing drilling permits for fossil fuels? No. Would they go after child molesters by bringing kids to them? No. I mean, they're feeding the addiction. They're feeding the aberrant behavior that's destroying lives. It makes no sense.
Randy, do you have the Gavin Newsom clip on recovery? Because I think part of the reason that they're doubling and tripling and quadrupling down, saying that this is exclusively or primarily a housing issue, is because ideologically, for whatever reason, they don't believe that recovery works. Here is the governor on recovery measures.
Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. I know it's a hold-your-hand idealistic point of view that somehow magically, I mean, God bless some of you. If you're like me, I've been known to have a glass of wine at night watching some of the nightly news. We all need to self-medicate periodically.
Clean and sober is one of the dumbest ideas we've ever had. That's his attitude.
Well, that notion is so absurd. I'm going to make a statement that you'll appreciate the magnitude of this. Even by Gavin Newsom standards, that may be the dumbest thing he's ever said. It may be the most. I mean, because it is so contrary to what is obviously the truth. It is absurd in the extreme to say something like that, and recklessly irresponsible. I mean, there is no other social ill that we could possibly, conceivably look to that the remedy would be to encourage more of the practice that's ruining lives. I mean, that's like saying, okay, there's no way you're going to keep kids from smoking cigarettes, so let's put cigarette machines in the hallways of middle schools. And we could take the money, and I'll sell the package now. We're not only going to put cigarette machines in schools, the money could be used to buy needles for tomorrow's addict so that they have clean needles. I mean, we could use the cigarette money that we make in schools. I mean, it's absurd, right? It's completely absurd. Who would think to do that? So we're going to hand out meth pipes to people, and we have been. We've been doing this for years, and it doesn't work. Now, what they don't want to admit is that we have, and I keep saying this, some of this is a demographic issue. You know where they don't have this problem? They don't have this problem in Singapore. Because in Singapore, if you spit on the sidewalk, you get caned. If you stick gum on the bottom of a Starbucks table, you get the death penalty. I'm slightly exaggerating. But in draconian authoritarian societies, you don't have a lot of this because they don't have any civil liberties of any kind, and they can just grab people and throw them to the gulag, and that's the last you ever see of them. All right, in this country, we got all kinds of rights, but at some point, the Bill of Rights is not a suicide pact. The Bill of Rights is there to protect the rights of a free people in a self-governing society from governmental overreach. It is not to paralyze us from taking action to protect society against typhus, against poop in the streets. And that's what they've interpreted it to, and it's absurd, and it's going to boomerang against them. What will bring back right-wing government in California is a continuation of left-wing paralysis, because this is false compassion, and everybody knows it, including the people, mouthing this, spouting this nonsense that you've been playing here today and for many, many months before this, and including the people who vote for all of these characters, because everybody knows it. We're seeing it with our own eyes. We've experienced it. Everybody has experienced it. You can't hide 70,000 lost souls wandering around like zombies in the second largest city in America. And it ain't just the second largest city in America. I just got back from Portland last night, and that's another city that has suffered irreparable damage from their own stupidity, self-inflicted stupidity. They invited people to come and be weird in Portland and to shoot up in Pioneer Square, and they took them up on it.
We're speaking with Doug Mcintyre, author of Frank Shadow, available starting July the 18th on Amazon.com and at your local bookstores. Doug, you mentioned that Manson family killer Leslie Van Houten has been released from prison. She's now living in an unincorporated part of Riverside County near Corona. She killed... took
She
part
may be
in the
reading
killings.
the Redland Daily Facts.
Yeah.
She might. Yeah, she could do.
She took part in the killings, of course, of the LaBiancos, who were grocers and had nothing to do with the Manson family. They did that trying to start a race war, so I guess Charlie could increase his influence over the world. Did you ever think that you would see a day where Manson family killers, including the famous ones like Leslie Van Houten, would be released from prison due to compassion?
Sadly, the answer is yes, because, Charlie used to come up every couple of years for parole, and you'd always hold your breath that one of our lunatics wouldn't go along with it. And I think I heard your first hour talking about this, and I think that you've hit it exactly right. Charlie Manson was so famous and so infamously famous and evil, and, the swastika tattoo on the forehead didn't help his cause any. So the political consequence to letting him walk was too high. Leslie Van Houten, she's a 70-something-year-old woman, and she looks, like she might be on a scooter in Walmart, and she looks pretty harmless now. So what's, and she says she's sorry. This is, again, an ideological issue that it's not necessarily a left-right issue. It's some kind of a spiritual issue, I think, that my feeling has always been, if you commit a deliberate act of homicide, and this isn't like a crime of passion, this is a calculated homicide with an escape plan, so that you're acutely aware that what you're doing is wrong because you're going to have a way to try to get away and get away with it. I don't think you should ever walk the streets in freedom ever again, because you've denied that to the LaBiancas. You robbed the LaBianca family of their parents and their grandparents and their descendants, etc. So I think you forfeit the right to that, but other people don't. They just think that there's and there's entire countries in Sweden. I mean, that guy who shot up all those kids on that island in Norway. There's a maximum sentence that you can be sentenced to for whatever the crime is in Norway, and eventually that guy's going to get let out. He'll get let out. He killed 70 people, whatever it is. They're going to let him out.
Seems like up is down, left is right, right is wrong in this state,
But
particularly on
a
issues of
correction.
criminal justice.
But there's always a correction, John. This is so reminiscent to me of New York City in the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, when New York City became a festering cesspool of crime and filth. And that's not just rhetoric. That's the reality. Where they were making decals. This was a New York City plan in the 1970s. They made giant posters of flower pots in windows that they were putting up in burned out shells of buildings in the Bronx. That when you're riding by on the train or you're on the Cross Bronx Expressway or the Bruckner, it would look like look at these nice brownstone buildings. And they were empty shells that had been gutted and burned out by junkies. But that's what they were doing. It was a Potemkin village. And eventually people had enough. And they started to vote for candidates who would be tough on crime and the broken window theory and bring in Bill Bratton, et cetera, et cetera. Started with Ed Koch. It went through Giuliani, et cetera. And it made a huge difference in turning around the city of New York. And right now, New York is experiencing backsliding like L.A. is. But I do think that there will always be, eventually, there'll be a turnaround because people get tired of living like this. And I might have mentioned this to you before, but remember the Arab Spring and the rebellions that were going on against Mubarak in Egypt?
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that was fascinating about that is that the real problem that led to Mubarak's downfall, that lit the fuse, was the price of wheat. That bread got really expensive, and the basics, the staples of life got really expensive, and the government didn't do anything about it. They didn't take this legitimate grievance seriously. And then society collapsed. The government fell. There was chaos. And you know what happened? People started to organize their own garbage collection because they didn't want to live with garbage in front of their homes. And eventually, society reforms because guess what? It's fundamental to human life that you not throw the trash in the street, that the trash gets picked up and the sewage gets dealt with, and you have to have clean water. These are fundamental things. And these idiots are blowing it. This is 101 stuff while they're issuing resolutions on free and fair elections in Guatemala and all the other nonsensical crap that the LA City Council finds infinite amounts of time to spend wasting the public's money on. They're punting on government 101. Pave the roads. Get sidewalks that are passable. Pick up the trash. Have schools that function. This is 101 stuff, and they've failed, utterly failed.
Doug, can you go through the calendar again so people know where to find you?
John, I'm so happy you asked. The big date, folks, is 1 week from tonight, the 18th of July, and John Phillips said he would drive up from Palm Springs to be there, and I'm so appreciative of that, John. And Randy Wang, you got no excuse. You got to drag your can over the hill.
Oh, I'll find one.
Too bad. Too bad. I'll pick you up on the way over. Anyway, it's July 18th, which is a week from tonight at 7 o'clock, 7 to 9 at the great Barnes & Noble store right at the Farmers Market. We'll have soft serve at Bennett's before, and then you come on over for the book signing and reading. And then the 22nd, I'm going to be at Gatsby's in Long Beach at noon. That's a Saturday. On Wednesday, the 26th, at Page's, a wonderful bookstore in Manhattan Beach in the South Bay at 6:30. And then on August 2nd, I'll be at Barnes & Noble at the Spectrum in Irvine at 6 p.m., which is going to be great. And Penny and I together at Vroman's, one of the great Southern California bookstores in Pasadena, at 7 o'clock. And if you miss any of that, you can find all of it posted at DougMcintyre.com.
The book is Frank Shadow, available on July the 18th. Doug, thanks so much for stopping by. It's always fun.
Thanks for having me, gang. Appreciate it.
Well, most days we open up the KABC Crime Blotter because things have gone bonkers here in the state of California. There are recurring themes when we open up the Crime Blotter, such as cities that have a lot of problems. One city that seems to make the blotter more often than all the others, even though it's not in our listening area, is Oakland.
Oh my God, they melted the basketball court.
And given all the problems that they have in the city of Oakland, it might surprise you to hear that the mayor of Oakland, who's in charge of all the chaos, now wants a big fat raise.
That's right. Imagine the job performance, the amount of confidence you have to have after everything that has happened in Oakland in the last 7 months for Mayor Sheng Tao's office to be like, yeah, she should get $75,000 more a year.
For more, here's KGO.
This is the wrong time to be making any salary increases.
Oakland City Council member Noel Gallo says he's not going to support a proposal to increase the mayor's salary. The city administrator's proposal will bump Mayor Sheng Tao's salary up $75,000 a year.
Is there anything more pressing the city could be doing, like fixing the 911 system before they worry about giving the mayor a raise?
This woman is the captain of the Titanic, and she wants 75 extra grand a year for the crappy job she turns in.
The city administrator's proposal will bump Mayor Sheng Tao's salary up $75,000 a year.
City administrator brought this forth, and he's using the argument that it's based on the charter that we have in place. But it's the wrong timing. It's not the right thing to do for the city of Oakland, and I'm not going to support it.
According to the California State Controller, the mayor for the city of Oakland makes a base salary of about $227,000.
Overpaid.
Again, for what? What in Oakland works right now? The professional sports teams are all moving out because that city is such a basket case. The 911 system doesn't work. They're literally blowing up the basketball courts.
Oh, my God. They melted the basketball court.
We're getting a lot of play out of that one. Maybe it will make the wall.
According to the California State Controller, the mayor for the city of Oakland makes a base salary of about $227,000. But add up the base salary plus retirement and health benefits, the mayor of Oakland made about $357,000 in 2022.
That's a pretty decent package.
She's a half a fake doctor.
That's less than what San Francisco's mayor made.
Oh, is that what this is about?
Yeah, she does pretty well up there.
Well, you got to understand, London Breed may look on paper like she makes more money, but a portion of her salary goes towards Tony tickets. So she really probably breaks out even.
She was filling the spirit.
The total compensation for the mayor of San Francisco is about $444,000 last year.
Overpaid.
The mayor of San Jose made about $247,000 last year.
Even more overpaid.
I don't know. If you're going to talk about overpaid officials in this state, the mayor of Oakland has to be at the top of the list.
In total compensation, San Francisco Mayor London Breed was the highest paid mayor in the state last year. But some people like Cal State East Bay political science professor Elizabeth Bergman say that compensation is still not enough.
What?
How brazen are you to literally wreck your city and then send your flunkies out to say that you're not making enough?
$400,000 to be CEO of San Francisco seems to me quite cheap.
I thought she was going to give us a quite frankly.
To be frank.
Oh, she was almost there. She did it backwards.
Quite cheap, to be frank. And
can we edit that so she says quite frankly?
I can almost do it. Let's see. Let's see if we do like.
Seems to me, to be frank, quite cheap.
No, wait. I got to do it. Here we go. I think I can make it work. It's not going to be great, but let's try it.
To me, quite, to be frank, cheap.
There. Happy?
I'm happy.
And the residents of San Francisco are lucky to be getting such a high quality, high caliber person for that.
What?
Who is this woman and what drugs is she taking?
How many kickbacks is she getting from the city of San Francisco and the city of Oakland?
That's not even fentanyl. That's bath salts.
For that price, so to speak, I would use the same argument as that being CEO of Oakland, that person deserves at least that compensation, if not more, quite honestly.
Oakland.
Dear.
Oakland City Councilman Gallo says his city faces a lot of problems.
We're projecting $360 million deficit here in the city of Oakland.
The city of Oakland budgeted up to $10 million to deal with the crippling ransomware attack. And then just last week.
Look what happened to the 911 call center for the police department this past week. It was down, it wasn't working, and we're still being challenged with the technology that we have in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
For $75,000, they could buy like 10 computers.
He seems like a politician that reads his constituent email.
So we need every nickel.
He has to read them by candlelight, though, because of the power outages.
So we need every nickel and dime to invest on supporting the public, supporting the community, and addressing the needs. And that needs to be our priority.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go over very well if the rest of the Oakland City Council tries to pass through a $75,000 raise for the mayor.
How much will it cost to replace the blown-up basketball court?
I would imagine more than $75,000.
Oh my God, they melted the basketball court.
If anything, we shouldn't be talking about pay raises for these elected officials. We should be talking about pay cuts. I propose every year the homeless number goes up, the city council, the board of supervisors, and the mayor, their salaries get cut in half.
I like that idea.